Please join me in welcoming Ken Duan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chantal. Thank you, everybody, for coming here and allowing me to tell you my story. Just for the record, I'm not giving a motivational speech here. I don't have any secrets of success. I'm here to tell you a story. It's my story. To start out in life, goal setting has always been something that I've done. When I was a little kid, I remember I always wanted a Porsche, so I got a picture of a Porsche and I put it in my top drawer, and when I go get my socks and underwear, I knew that's what I was striving for when I went to work. As life goes on, it became a sailboat. I took sailing lessons and I wanted a yacht. That's my retirement dream. No different in work, in sales, goals. I've been in sales for almost 30 years, and goals have driven me to where I like to be. Without a target, there's never a path. Without a goal, there's never a focus. So you need to create that path for your desired income. Same as today, I have a goal. My goal is for you to understand that every decision you make in life, everything that comes up in your life, you can make that decision in 6 seconds. Every day we're faced with a myriad of decisions. Something about work, the wife wants something, the wife. Business, marriage, your golf game, you're trying to think of things that you're trying to improve upon. Understand that people outside of us deflect that decision and influence that decision, maybe the right way or maybe the wrong way. But if you think about it in 6 seconds for yourself, you know what the right decision is. So I'm here to tell you my story. I'm here to tell you, I'm here for you to understand and realize that by remaining positive throughout whatever you do, you can accomplish whatever you want. They've given me about an hour. I'm going to try and make it a little bit shorter, so if there's Q&A at the end. 27 years ago, I worked at the Hockey News. I was a kid growing up. I played hockey since I was 4 years old. It was my dream job. I sold advertising. I got to meet the players. I got to go to the awards banquets and sit with Wayne Gretzky and Luc Robitaille and Bobby Orr and Bobby Hull. And it was, for me, it was a dream. On the weekends, I would trade my suit for a tracksuit, and I would head up to the drop zone. A friend of mine, doesn't want to work for me. A friend of mine found a 2-for-1 coupon for skydiving, and he says, "Ken, come on, let's go." So I'm like, okay, let's try this out. And we go up to the drop zone, we take our first jump course, and we proceed to go and jump. 2,500 feet, it was a great jump, first jump. We land, we're high-fiving, we're kicking ass, and this is great. He said 2 weeks down the road, we're going to come back. I couldn't wait 2 weeks. So the following weekend, I head to the drop zone, and I started jumping. I didn't wait for Dave. He was a week behind me. That next weekend, I did about 4 or 5 jumps. He comes up the next weekend, and I'm already doing my first free fall. I jumped from October to April. I got about 68 jumps in, and I jumped in all kinds of weather. It was 28 degrees below zero one time. Freezing, you're going down, everything's covered, and you're just hoping that when you land, you can feel your fingers. On this particular day in April, I had just earned my instructor rating the week before, and I had a sinus cold, much like I have right now. And so I decided I'm not going to jump. I'm going to stay on the ground, and I'm going to do ground control and radio in all of the first-time jumpers to land. So they come in. I see this girl come on the drop zone, and I know she's not from Arthur, and I'm looking at her, kind of interested. I'm a 24-year-old guy. So she goes and she does a jump. She comes over because I'm standing at the radio the whole time, and she says, "You know, Ken, I'd like if you could set me up on a 2-way." No, it's not what you think it is. 2A is when two people jump at the same time and do a bunch of relative work. Anyways, I've got this sinus cold. I'm like, I can't really jump, so I'll set you up. She jumps and lands, packs her chute. We're there for another couple hours, and now I'm kind of starting to like this girl. So she comes to me, she goes, Ken, I got time for one more jump. Can you set me up on a four-way? And at this point, I'm going, I got to show her what I got. So I go back to my trailer and I grab some Dristan and I'm like, let's go for a jump. Just so you know, girls are, for guys, think with your head. Anyways, we decide we're going to go and do a jump from 7,500 feet. And I don't know if anybody's been up in the CN Tower next door, but the observation deck there is at 1,100 feet, and I jumped 7 times that far. So we go up in the helicopter, and I'm the first one on the strut. I get out on the strut, she's behind, 2 guys behind her, pull her out, they follow, we do our jump. 3,500 feet, we separate, and we go and we pull our chutes. I pull my chute and I feel nothing. So I look up, and there's the bag with the lines extended, but the parachute's still in the bag. So the instinct kicks in, I grab my cutaway, grab my reserve, bang, bang. Well, there's no drag on the main, so it didn't release. The reserve popped into the main line's tangled around the reserve, and it didn't open. From that point on, all I could do was think about shaking the risers and looking at the ground. Third time I looked down, I said, this is it, I'm going in. I pulled my feet below me, I landed feet first, feet and knees bent, and I hit the ground. From the time they both failed to the time I hit the ground was 6 seconds. I didn't think about the 6 seconds, but I had 6 seconds to decide what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. We teach our students for a hard landing to do feet, knees together, knees bent. It acts like a single point shock absorber. Most skydivers, when they go in flat, the heart hits the rib cage and you're pretty much gone. But by thinking and landing feet first, my internal organs had room to maneuver or move. But at 100 miles an hour, when I hit, my vertebrae compressed. So L2 was sitting on L4 and L3 was pushed out to the side. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I landed, I'm sitting there and I go, I was conscious and I just couldn't believe I was alive. Last thought I had before I hit the ground was, this is it, I'm going in. So I landed, I'm laying there, and I see 2 of the guys that I was jumping with come down and land beside me, and the other girl went back to the drop zone to call the ambulance, which is protocol. It was April 18th, 1987. There's frost on the ground. I didn't leave an imprint. I hit the ground hard. They call the ambulance. The nearest ambulance is 20 minutes away. I was in Arthur. Ambulance station's in Fergus, so I'm laying there for 20 minutes, and all I'm doing is talking to the guys and the people that have now gathered around me, my skydiving team, and talking about how I'm going to jump again, and this is no big deal. We'll get this fixed. And I was conscious, coherent, knew what was going on. Well, when the ambulance gets there, it tries to drive out in the farmer's field and gets stuck in the ruts, so now it's not going anywhere. Fortunately, I was jumping out of a helicopter, so they just loaded me on a stretcher and loaded me back in the helicopter. This is what my parachute looked like. They loaded me into the helicopter and they told me I'm going to Kitchener-Waterloo. My parents at the time were in Eganville. It was Easter weekend, Saturday of Easter weekend. My parents were in Eganville, and my brother's in Europe, my sister's in Saskatchewan, so I got nobody, and they say, we're going to Kitchener-Waterloo. Well, I got a cousin there. You got to call him. He's going to get a hold of my family. So they load me back into the helicopter, and it was a short 10-minute flight to the Firestone plant in Kitchener-Waterloo, which is the only place the helicopter could land. Road ambulance meets me. They load me into the road ambulance, and that's where I'm laying there going, oh my gosh, I really got to go pee. The guy's like, give me a bucket or a cup or whatever. He's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, I'm not peeing in my underwear. So he's like, don't worry about it. We get to the hospital, and we're at Kitchener-Waterloo, and we get to the ER, and they're starting to cut off my jumpsuit, and the nurse is about to cut off my instructor shirt that I just got last week. Now, you got to understand that at 24 years old, the instructor shirt, the girls love it. do not cut off my shirt. She's like, no, I got to cut it off. I know, no, don't do that. She said, you get a new one. Okay, so she cuts it off. She's about to get to my underwear, and I'm like, hold on a minute, what's your name? She's Susan, why? I'm like, you're cutting my underwear off. I got to know your first name at least. Oh, by the way, they were clean that morning. Anyways, they do the x-rays and they do their thing, and they realize that it's too serious and they can't do anything there, so they have to send me to Sunnybrook Hospital. But the air ambulance is at another scene. So into the road ambulance, they load me. Now I've asked at that point, is like, my cousin here? Is anybody here? Well, I'm already in the ambulance. Well, I don't know if anybody's here, but somebody's been following us for the last 10, 15 minutes. Anyways, they do the x-rays. I have the compressed vertebrae and I have a collapsed lung. They put a chest tube in me, and off to Sunnybrook I go. We're on our way to Sunnybrook, and we're in Toronto, apparently in Toronto. I'm laying in the back, and I've had a shot of morphine or so. And all I hear is, ah, damn. The guy beside me is like, what's the matter? Well, I just missed my cutoff. I don't know where I'm going. They're from Kitchener, so I'm laying in the back, and I work 10 minutes from Sunnybrook, so I'm like, well, where are you? So he tells me, so I actually was laying in the back giving the guy directions to get me to the hospital. I mean, I was on morphine, but I still knew what the hell was going on. Anyways, we get to Sunnybrook, and this is kind of cool. But because I've had morphine, I didn't remember it all. So it was recounted to me a couple of days later by the trauma nurse, Judy. And if you've ever seen Trauma Life in the ER, there's 4 nurses and 3 doctors that jump on you. But most times the patients are unconscious. I'm conscious. I know what's going on. I got one doctor going, you know, can you feel this? I got a nurse saying, can I have your name? Can I have your address? And I got another one, you know, putting an IV in me, and I just yelled, stop! And Judy goes, everybody went hands off. She goes, I have never seen that in the trauma room, ever. So everybody went hands off. I went to the nurse beside me, what did you want? Name, address, okay, who's next? So I was very fortunate that I kept my wits about me for the most part. Later that night, they had gotten a hold of, the police had gone, found my parents, and they flew in. And so I saw them, but it was pretty much a morphine blur to the next day. They couldn't do surgery on me that same day because the orthopedic surgeon was unavailable, so I had to wait a day. Sunday goes, I get the surgery, they put rods in my back, they realign my back, and put the rods in, everything's good. I come out of intensive care and I'm pretty groggy, and mom and dad are there, and I could see on their face that was hurting them a lot more than it was hurting me, because now their son's a paraplegic. Unbeknownst to me, the doctors had told my parents I'd never walk again. Fortunately, they never told me because I was planning on jumping again. My parents gave me a necklace 3 days later, says no pain, no gain, and I wear it to this day. Everyday life for me is pain, but everyday life for everybody has a little bit of pain. But if you decide what you want to accomplish, you can accomplish that goal. It's going to hurt a little bit sometimes, but you can make it happen. I'm in intensive care. It's about the second day after surgery, and I'm still hopped up on morphine. I'm 24 years old, and mom's beside the bed. She was there every day. And I'm laying there, and I'm like, Mom, check my scrotum. Something's strangling it. Check my scrotum. She leans over, and she goes, what's a scrotum? So I told her. She went and got the nurse. I dodged a bullet there, because there's some things that your mother doesn't want to see when you're 24 years old. Anyways, every day in Sunnybrook was nonstop visitors. Sunnybrook was way ahead of their time, in my opinion. This was 27 years ago, and I'm in intensive care, and the rules on the wall are 2 visitors, immediate family only, 1 hour at a time. But I had a lineup of skydivers. I had a lineup of family that was always wanting to visit. So I was there, laying in the bed, and it would go from 9 in the morning till 7 at night. I always had visitors. The skydivers, sometimes there'd be 10 or 15 of them sitting in the waiting room just shooting a shit, waiting to get their turn to come in and see me. And I got to tell you, support is huge when you go through something like this. So if you know anybody, all they want is visitors. Doesn't matter how their life has changed. 3 days after surgery, Wednesday, April 22nd, and I'm laying in bed, and I've laid on my back for the last 4 days. And the physiotherapist comes in at Sunnybrook, and she's like, "We got to get you up." So, okay. So I can't move, so she starts moving one leg, and then she moves another. And as she goes to lift me up, I felt the most excruciating pain I had ever felt in my life. And I let out a grunt. It might have been a scream. But that was the first move in a very long rehab process. The fortunate thing was every day I got different sensations coming back. I'd broken at L3, your spinal cord ends at L1, so the nerves, the peripheral nerves below your spinal cord, they're called cauda nerves, can regenerate. I'm feeling sensations, I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to be walking, this is pretty cool. So they get me up, and that was the first of many moves in my rehab process. A few days later, they moved me to the spinal ward. I'm up there with other people who've broken their backs, broken their necks, sort of in the same position as me. And so we start having conversations. Derek's in the bed across from me, and he broke his back at the same level, same day. He was in a truck accident. And we just, you know, what are we going to do? We're just talking about what our next steps are. Hopefully they're steps. And trying to stay positive. You got to understand anything can happen to anybody on any given day. So we start talking about Lyndhurst Hospital. Lyndhurst is one of 2 spinal cord rehab hospitals in all of Canada at the time. And it's just south of Sunnybrook. And I knew that I was on the list to get to Lyndhurst. So I was kind of happy. Second day on the spinal ward, the nurse comes in and she goes to put the bed rails up on the side of the bed for bed check at 10 o'clock. And I'm like, "Can you put those down?" She's like, no, we can't do that. I'm like, "But I can't sleep with those up. I can't even move." She goes, "Well, it's hospital policy." I said, "Have you ever checked my chart?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "I just fell 7,500 feet. I don't think those last 3 feet are going to hurt me much more." Anyways, I won that argument, so I got the bed rails put down. While I was there, I was, I tried to stay upbeat and happy. And Richard Petty happened to be doing a tour of Sunnybrook and came up to the spinal ward and talked with Derek and myself. And all of a sudden they said, TSN wants to do a video or do a segment on you. I'm like, well, that's cool. 24 years old, work for the Hockey News, I get to be on TSN. Didn't realize that Richard Petty had actually broken his neck 3 times in his life and still walks. So there was another little piece of, a little tidbit of there might be light at the end of the tunnel. I kept talking about jumping again. I kept talking about, how I was, the only way I could jump is if I could walk to the plane. My parents didn't like the fact that I was talking about jumping. My publisher didn't like the fact that I was talking about jumping. But I knew that was my motivation for walking again. Skydiving has this thing. There's a saying, for those who do it, no explanation is necessary. And for those who don't, no explanation is possible. So I use this analogy, try and describe sex to a virgin. You can tell them all you want how great it is, but until they actually do it, they're never going to realize how it feels, and that's skydiving. So I want to stop for a second, and I want to ask you a question. What do you think it means to be positive? Are you happy, jovial, upbeat, keeping a smile on your face? Doesn't matter? To me, that's a great emotional state, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're positive. To me, being positive means being focused on the outcome, being focused on your goal, being determined and positive that you're going to reach that goal regardless. I'm going to hit budget this month. I'm going to win that trip next year. On the flip side, being negative, you're saying, oh, I really hope we get, we make budget, or I really hope I get that order. What's the most important decision in your life right now? How positive are you in trying to achieve that outcome? Being singularly focused on that outcome, to me, is what being positive is. So back to my story, I'm moving over to Lyndhurst. And the day comes and I get shipped over and I get to meet my primary team. I get a primary doctor, nurse, occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, a recreational therapist, and a psychologist. And that's your team that takes care of you. You're going through something pretty serious, so I was very fortunate that I got one of the 70 beds over at Lyndhurst. I'm there and I see people around me. Everybody's got spinal injuries. Some are better off than me, some are worse off than me. But the weird thing is, it's all, people 16 to 30 years old, mostly guys. That's the risk takers. That's the stupid, well, no, I'm not going to say stupid, because I don't think jumping out of a plane is stupid, but anyways, everybody's there. They've had a super traumatic injury and they're still happy. I'm going to say 95% of the people that were at Lyndhurst were all upbeat and all focused on the same thing, and that is getting as good as they can with whatever they got left. The next day I meet with my physiotherapist, Martha Binstock, and Martha tells me what the routine's going to be. We're going to get 1 hour of physio a day, you're going to get 1 hour of occupational therapy a day, and that's pretty much it. Then you can sit in the cafeteria, you can watch TV, you can go out and have a smoke, whatever you want to do. So 6 months is the normal stay. We're going to get you, learning to use your wheelchair as best we could, and we're going to get you to figure out, whatever we can with your body to get as mobile as possible. I always remember it's during that first day, that conversation that I had with Martha, and I looked at her and I said, I want to walk out the front doors and I need your help. And if you help me, I will take you to the best restaurant in all of Toronto. So I started rehab. I was doing my 1 hour a day in physio, 1 hour a day in occupational therapy, but I was a para, so I could use my arms. I didn't really need occupational therapy. That was more figuring out how to use a kitchen and knives and forks, and I could still do that. So I was getting my 1 hour physio a day at the end of the first week, and that was it. So I went to Martha and I told her, I'm getting bored and I really need your help. Can you just, I'll do the work, you set me up in a corner and I'll do whatever you set me up, and you go to your other patients. So after a couple of weeks, I'm now up to 2 or 3 hours. She'd squeeze me in wherever she could. If she lost, if a patient moved out, then I got that hour. So I was up to 3 or 4 hours, and in the third week I get called. I'm in physio, I'm strapped up, and I get a call that I have to go up to Brenda's office, the psychologist. So I get my bright orange wheelchair and wheel up to Brenda's office, and she closes the door. And I said, what's going on? She goes, well, we're worried about you. I said, what's the matter? She goes, well, you're not going through, the signs of what you should be going through. And I don't even know the signs, so don't ask me. I don't know if it's depression or remorse or why me or what, but I never once said why me. So we had a conversation. It lasted about 45 minutes, and I basically said, look, I signed a waiver that said I could die doing this, but I'm here talking to you. So whatever life has given me, it's given me breath, and I'm going to do whatever I can with that. I'm not going to sit there and go, why me, and wheel out of here. I'm going to walk and I'm going to jump out of a plane again. Anyways, long and short of it, 45-minute conversation goes by, and she says, you know what, I'm not worried about you anymore, and I'm going to let the team know. She, it was one of those things where, I don't know, maybe we hit it off. And I just told her, I'm going to, if I end up in my chair the rest of my life, then I'm going to do the best I can with it. And I know some people have seen me doing this in Vegas or in Toronto or whatever, but Lyndhurst taught me how to use a wheelchair like legs. And I can go up and down escalators and up and down curbs and up and down stairs. Stairs are a little tough now, but it was one of those things where it didn't bother me to be in a chair. It was, that's what I'm going to do. Life's a game of cards. This is the hand I got dealt. Deal with it. At the end of the conversation, Brenda talked to me about a thing called the PARTY program. It's called Prevent Alcohol and Risk-Related Trauma Among Youth, and it had just started up, and she thought that me talking to some of these kids might have an impact. So what the PARTY program is, real quick, is a program that started about 6 months before I had my accident. It started at Sunnybrook Hospital in conjunction with Lyndhurst. And we would take the kids, grade 9 and 10 students, through a day as if they were in an accident. So the first person they would hear from would be paramedics, then the nurse, the trauma nurse, then the trauma doctor. Then we would take them over to the trauma room and show them the IVs and everything that would go on. From there, we would take them up to the NICU and SIC, neuro and surgical intensive care, where people are laying with breathing tubes and with everything hanging out of them. And it wasn't really a scare. It's not really a scare program. It's really an enlightenment program, trying to show them what some of these risks that you take can help you end up as. So she asked me to be part of it, and Judy Radford, who started the program, and I and a couple others, we would take them through, and at the end of the day I would sit with another person, and we would talk about our accident, and our experiences, what went on there. So I'd recount my story. That probably helped a little bit too. It didn't bother me to talk about my story, but anyways, getting back on track, I was working out every day, and I was getting down to 95 pounds. I was in pain. I couldn't sit up for more than 15 minutes a day. Martha now had me hydrotherapy for 3 hours in the morning. I go have breakfast. I get up to her physio for a couple hours, have lunch, go back to physio. But at 4:15 every day, the end of the day, physio was done at 4. I had my 20 minutes with Martha because I needed ultrasound on my back. And that's where a young guy and a little bit older, slightly older lady with starting a family had conversations every day for months and months and months. And I'm going to tell you that she's the person that got me walking. You know, Facebook's a really cool thing, and this accident was 27 years ago, but 3 years ago I started trying to find Martha on Facebook. And about just over a year ago, I found somebody, Martha Binstock, Toronto, and I typed a message, "Are you the Martha that got me walking 25 years ago?" And it took about a month or so for the reply to come through. She obviously was just starting on Facebook at that point. Anyways, the message comes through, and yeah, maybe I am. And so I called, we got together, and we had lunch. And so after 26 years, I found Martha, and we got to have lunch. And what a reunion. Like, this is the person that changed my life. And I've invited her here today. She's sitting over there. And Martha, I want to say thank you. You didn't know this was coming, but I want to say thank you. You not only changed my life, but everybody that you helped in that hospital the whole way along. You've changed their lives too. Thank you. I had a little setback when I was at Lyndhurst, and it had nothing to do with my physical self. My publisher decided that he didn't like me talking about skydiving. He sent me a 4-page letter and said, when you come back, I don't want you talking about skydiving. I don't want you to engage in skydiving. And just so you know, when you return, accounts will be reallocated so as not to jeopardize business and in accordance with your capabilities. Well, we're all salespeople here. We know that the capabilities is up there, so I knew that going back was going to be a tough road. Well, I chose at that point, I'm still in the hospital, not to even worry about it. Actually, Martha's husband, I think it was Martha's husband, worked in human rights and told me that I could nail this guy to the wall. I chose not to. I chose to just let it go and work on walking again. Lyndhurst offered tons of recreational programs. They really were well-rounded. You know, I learned to sail while I was there. I was doing wheelchair racing. I learned to play wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, all sorts of different games. And I got to tell you, they're pretty tough, those guys in rugby. I'm in physio every day, and 6 months into it, you know, you're there, and just so you understand, to learn to walk again is just like watching your baby learn to walk. She would get me up on all fours, and if I lifted my hand, I would fall on my face. If I lifted my leg, I'd fall on my ass. But 6 months into it, after all of the work, Martha got me to a long leg brace and got me to the parallel bars, and I got up. and my first 3 steps took a half an hour to make, 6 months after my accident. Now that half an hour is a long time to do 3 damn steps, but I knew that at that point I was going to walk out of that hospital. I'm at the 6-month mark, and most people are discharged, but I'd like to think that my attitude and my work ethic and whatever allowed me to stay longer. Fast forward to the 9-month mark, and they're getting ready to discharge me. And I get to the front door. I've got my parents by my side. I'm in my wheelchair, and I've got Martha there. And we get to the door, and I stop, and Martha hands me the crutches, and I get up, and I walk through those doors. And it was the best feeling in the world. And I turn to Martha, and I go, I guess I got to take you out for dinner now. I skimmed through a lot, but those 9 months define who I am today. And if I didn't go through it, I don't know that I'd be the same person. After the hospital, I still have a long way to go. I'm still spending a lot of outpatient physio time, and the 50-week mark rolls around, it's time for me to go back to work. They set up a handicap spot at the back. There's no ramp. There's a big step about this much. But I think in my own mind that the publisher just didn't want a handicapped person in his office. I was there for about, well, I guess it was a couple of weeks. So April 18th rolls around, and I guess I didn't make anything better because I celebrated my rebirth day. That was my new birthday. That was the 1-year anniversary of me living. Anyways, life changed at the Hockey News. I wasn't involved in sales meetings. I didn't go to the budget meetings, and my client base had been cut. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I just said, I'm out of here. Like, I don't need this. I spent a little bit of time looking for a job, but I finally found a job. I just didn't want to dwell on the negative. At that point, I started doing a little bit more wheelchair racing. I continued to train, and the buddy Dave that I went skydiving with decided he wanted to do a marathon. So forgive me for the pictures, but we decided that I was going to train for a marathon, and we went to the race start that day, and they wouldn't let us start together, but because wheelchairs have to be ahead of the pack. Anyways, 3 hours and 20 minutes later, I crossed the finish line, and that was a goal that I had set out again, that I just wanted to do it. I had done a couple of 10Ks, but the marathon was just on my list. I hit the finish line, I couldn't lift my arms. I mean, it was just done. They wheeled me to the medical tent, and the massage therapist liked the fact that she was working on shoulders, not feet at that point. Actually got sponsors for the race, which was kind of cool. And again, it's just one of those things. We're in sales, so it's like I gotta spend this money. I gotta do some stuff. You go, you get sponsors. It works. Shortly thereafter, I found a job in Elmvale, which is north of Barrie, and that's where I met my now wife, Fern. And right after that, I had my surgeon's appointment for my back. And I went to him and I said, I want to jump again. Is my back okay? It's as healed as it's ever going to heal. At this point, they had taken the rods out, left part of a screw in because they broke it. But I was as healed as I was ever going to get, and I still have the prescription pad that says I am cleared to do whatever activities I choose. And so I've been going out with Fern, 3 months, and it's like, let's go to the drop zone. She goes, why are we going there? Because I'm going to jump out of a plane. So based on my back, I didn't want to really do my own jump, so I signed up for a tandem jump and went to 9,500 feet and did a jump 2 years later. I walked to the plane, I climbed in, and I'm going to tell you, it was just as good as every other jump. There was no nerves, there was no whatever. I continued doing different sports, and I said, I learned the disabled sailing down at Queens Quay. My buddy and I, Brent, he's a quadriplegic, we started doing some racing, and we were actually asked to go to the U.S. National Championships for the disabled in Newport, Rhode Island, which was a thrill. I gotta stop doing that, eh? It was a thrill for me. But now it's like, we gotta get to Newport. How are we gonna get to Newport? Same thing. I wrote a bunch of letters, Chrysler, Casio, North Sail products. We got so much stuff. Labatt's gave us $1,500 25 years ago. We went down and we sailed in it's called a Freedom 21. Anyways, we're strapped into the boat. You can see Brent's there, he's on the back. I had a little bit more ability, so I was up doing the sails. And at the end of the week, we ranked second overall in the US National Championships. All by setting a goal that that's what we wanted to do. We lost to the sailing team from the New York Yacht Club. It was a very busy time before when I got back. I was getting married, and I got a job interview. I got a job interview with a guy at Creatis. And get there, and an hour later he's like, so when do you want to start? I said, well, I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Can you give me 3? He's like, okay. So I go home, and I'm talking to Fern, and we just signed a new condo lease. We're getting married in 2 weeks. I got a new job, honey. Oh, that's awesome. She's all excited for me. How much does it pay? I said, well, it's commission. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, if I don't sell, I don't get paid. She's like, what are you doing to me? I didn't sign up for this. But in my head, I mean, everything that I've gone through, I knew what my outcome was going to be. I knew that I was going to make it happen. I never focused on the money. I never, ever focused on the money. I focused on my client satisfaction. I figured if my clients were happy, if I treated them the way I wanted to be treated, then my wallet's going to take care of itself. And if anybody was at any of the seminars yesterday, they talk about client retention. Some of my longest standing clients are 23 years and 18 years and 16 years, and some of them are actually here today. It's about treating people, again, the golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. Business continued to grow and life evolved, and my wife got pregnant and daughter was on the way. So I'm just fast forwarding here a little bit, but understand that as life changed, okay, let's keep going. Edit. As life is evolving, I just decided, my wife and I had decided actually that we wanted her to stay home with the kids. So I continued to work. That first year and a half, I actually delivered pizzas to make ends meet, but we made it through. 2 years after I started, it was time that she could actually stop and stay home with the kids because of the focus, the drive, the determination of what I wanted to do. I remember, we fall down a lot of times in what we do, and I fall down literally a lot of times. I remember going into one of my clients and waiting at the front door for a press approval on a t-shirt. She's got somebody in there with her, and I'm waiting for 20 minutes. Finally, I just called her on her direct line and said, look, I just need a minute. Can I come in and get this signed? So she's like, come on in. So I go in. She signs off, and this guy's sitting there. And as I turn to leave, my knee gives out. And away I go. And my hand goes in the garbage can, and my ass crushes the box beside her, and everybody's jumping up. Are you okay? Okay. And I hate when that happens. Climb up, and I'm all okay. Don't worry. Everybody's coming around. I leave. I get down to my car, and I call her up again. I'm like, have you stopped laughing yet? Anyways, life is about working hard and doing what you want, deciding what you want. And I played 3 winter sports and 3 summer sports before my accident, but I couldn't really do a lot, so I started taking up golf again. And I wasn't that great at the beginning. I was a 28 handicap, but again, it was the only sport I could still play, so I worked on it. And I worked hard, and I got myself down to a 12 handicap plus a left leg. And for me, again, it's a passion, it's a drive, it's a desire. This is where I want to be, so this is what I'm going to do. After that, I decided I wanted to fly. I wanted to get back in the air. And Fern didn't want me jumping. I called a university friend of mine who was a flight instructor at Barrie Flight Center and said, Mike, I need to go flying. He's like, I don't know if you can do it. I'm like, well, take me up, let's see. So I was able to control the plane a little bit. He's like, well, go with a flight examiner first before you spend 10 grand on lessons. So I went, and the examiner, I showed him I could control. He's like, go take your lessons. And 19 years ago, 6 months after I started that, I got my license. And now I fly. I've flown to Grand Cayman Islands in a 4-seater. I've flown to the East Coast. I've owned my own plane with my cousin. We've been to Oshkosh 4 or 5 times, and it's one of those things again where I may be harping on this, but if you have the focus, if you have that positive desire to see the outcome, you can make it happen. A few months ago, well, a few years ago, my 16-year-old son decides, Dad, I want to go jump out of a plane. Like, will you take me? I'm like, yeah, if you want me to get divorced. So I'm like, you know what? When I did it, I earned my money. I found my way to the, to pay for it, and I went and I did it myself. So he's talking about this, and my wife's like, I don't even want to hear you talk about skydiving. 3 years later, he's 19. He's off to college. He just finished, 4 years of working at McDonald's and saved up some money, and he goes off to college, and he calls me 3 weeks later and he says, Dad, I've registered for the first jump course. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, will you come watch me jump out of the plane? Sure. So I'm not taking him, I'm just going to watch, and my mom happened to live 20 minutes away, so the day rolls around, and I said to my wife, I said, Fern, I'm going to see Mom today. It's usually a pretty safe thing that she's not going to want to come. So she goes, okay, you go. I'm going to do some baking. And so we have that conversation, and 10 minutes before I'm ready to leave, she goes, you know what, Ken, I'm going to come with you to visit your mom. Okay. Now the wheels are going. What am I going to do here? Fern, I'm not going to see Mom. Where are you going? I'm going to go see Jarrett jump out of a plane. She just silence, dead silence. Anyways, she looks at me. I'm like, you told me not to say anything to you. I'm not guilty here. You're right. I'm not mad at you, she says. So 10 minutes later, she decides, okay, I'm going to come with you. So we drive up to the drop zone, and we're there. And he happened to go to the Parachute School of Toronto, which is where I was a skydiving instructor and where I jumped and had my accident. And he goes and he gets in the course, and they're saying, oh, why are you here? And he tells about my dad. Oh, I remember that guy. And we get up there, and the winds are too high, so we're waiting a couple hours, and I'm looking at the board. How much for a tandem jump? Fern's like, don't do that. The guy goes, well, it's $300 plus tax, $340. And a voice around the corner chirps, no, not for you. He goes, I remember you. He goes, for you, it's 2 slots and a gear rental, $125. I got, yeah. Fern's like, no. Like, okay, well, we'll just wait for Jared to jump. Well, lo and behold, he doesn't jump that day. We have to go back the next day. The winds are good. He goes up and he gets in the plane and he jumps. And I guess I had a little bit of charm because I got permission to go. So he landed, hug and a high five, and then I walked over to the plane and got in and went to 12,500 feet. And because I was an instructor, because I had my license, they actually let me put a GoPro on my wrist. So this is me, just this September, 25 years. Now, don't laugh at the face because it looks pretty wonky when the air hits it and you get old, flabby skin. But 25 years later, I got to jump on the same day that my son did his first jump. And the skydiving instructor, or the tandem master, actually let me do the whole jump. You saw how we flipped out. We just did a totally unethical jump, but not unethical, unorthodox jump. And able to turn and do everything I could do before. 2 words. Be positive. Fortunately, that's my blood type, so it's in me to be positive. But understand that being positive isn't just necessarily having a sunny disposure. It's not just, the happy, jovial, upbeat. Being positive is about your focus and your determination. When things get tough, you say, what am I going to do to get through this? Not, oh my gosh. Okay? You can be an ornery sort and still be positive. Understand that. Scotty Bowman was probably the media thought he was a prick. His players thought he was terrible. Like, this guy, you just didn't want to be around. But Scotty Bowman's got 13 Stanley Cup rings because he's positive on his desired outcome. Ever since I left Lyndhurst, there's never been a year gone by that I haven't volunteered. I have, the therapists there, the volunteers that came in for the 9 months that I was there that would take me out to go shopping, to do things, made a difference in my life. So every year, I strive to volunteer. We're in a business that gives us the flexibility in our time and our day and gives us the opportunity to help others. So I guess what I'm asking here is if you have that time, go make a positive change in somebody else's life. I heard somewhere that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. Go away today understanding that anything is possible if you have the right attitude. Never give up on a dream. Choose it, define it, and go after it. Don't let the negative get in your way. Decide in 6 seconds how you're going to handle that problem. Take 6 seconds right now and decide what you want to do with the rest of your life. Thank you.